The greatest fear that most people have is rejection. We want to be willing to let go of your past, and that's very scary. And so we ask ourselves some questions. Are you willing to face your fears? To fail? Are you willing to look foolish? Are you willing to face, this is a crucial one, are you willing to face any feeling and sit with and keep that feeling if it never goes away all day? The question is not, where are you at right now compared to everyone else? The question is, what are you going to do right now about it?
Finding peace and living with peace are two different things. What you practice and what you say you practice are also two different things. Today, you're going to meet somebody who practices what he preaches, who follows through, who does the work, who went as far as living in the desert for years at a clip just to not even prove a point, but answer questions and find out the right questions to ask to even answer in the first place. I'm so privileged to introduce an individual who is teaching the rest of the world what it means to live with what we call inner excellence at the highest levels. Please meet the author of Inner Excellence and mental performance coach, high performer himself, athlete, and so much more, Mr. Jim Murphy. How are you today, sir?
Thank you, Jonathan. Thanks for having me.
So you write this book, it goes viral. After you'd written a previous version of this book and one or two others, you did all this deep work. You came to a bunch of conclusions. But of all the questions that I want to ask you, I think an optimal place to start is why? Why did you decide to pursue this journey of inner excellence? What was it that set you on this path?
Yeah, I always thought I was going to be a superstar pro athlete when I was little, and got drafted by the Cubs, and dream come true. And but then I played 5 years professionally, and then had to retire. I got injured, and it was devastating. Completely felt like I lost everything. Lost who I was, lost all my dreams and hopes, and had no clue what to do next. I get offered a position as a high school JV baseball coach, inner city Seattle. I'm driving a truck for FedEx and just trying to figure out my life. And I just had no interest in coaching. I just never considered it. And then we had such a great time, and we didn't lose a game. And I was like, oh, I guess my destiny was to be a superstar major league manager, not a player. So, I go to get my master's degree in coaching science so I can get a job teaching PE and pay the bills. And then my plan was to coach the high school baseball team, win a championship, get a job in the university, do the same thing, then get a job in the pros. I go to grad school, University of British Columbia, start a baseball team there that becomes a varsity sport across Canada. And I play football there. It was an amazing experience. Become Canadian. And that led me on this journey. I get a job coaching pro baseball and with the Texas Rangers. And I think it's going to be my career. Okay, I just got to switch from pro baseball player to pro baseball coach. And I think that's going to be my destiny. And then 6 months into it, I quit. It just was not working out. And at the time, it was devastating. Just complete, utter failure. That's what I felt like. Like, why isn't this working? I just don't understand it. And I had no hope and no vision, no understanding. Now I look back and I say, oh, it was all in God's plan. He was training me the whole time. I just had no clue. And I think this is so important for everyone to realize is that you could be going through the worst thing in your life right now, and it's all training for you. I had no idea at the time. And now looking back with the aid of hindsight, I can see, wow, all of those times when I was so low and so afraid, so filled with anxiety that I could barely function, it was all training for me for this season in my life. And so, yeah, I go to the desert, and my teammate, Ricky Scruggs, asked me to come down and help him with a baseball academy that he was launching. And I was just wanted to figure out my life. And so I decided to go live a life of solitude and give away over half my possessions, and went to go pursue this find out something that I could devote my life to. And then that's where I decided to become a personal coach to pro baseball players and teach them how to have peace and confidence under pressure. And my first 2 clients did amazing. So then I decided to put together this manual for future clients. And that manual turned into 5 years of full-time writing and research that becomes the book Inner Excellence.
Mental toughness, mental strength is a big theme about the things you talk about. I've been deep diving this, practicing this for years. But more recently, I think you've talked about these ideas before in the sense that, you weren't ready at a certain point in your life. Even if you knew what these ideas were, you weren't necessarily ready to teach and preach about them. But my question to you is, How do you define mental toughness, mental strength? How would you define those terms?
When I think about mental toughness, I think about the ability to perform how you would in a normal situation. So, say you're an 80% free throw shooter in practice, can you do that in the playoffs? If you make you make 90% of your putts from 5 foot and in practice or in a regular event, can you do that with the tournament on the line? That's some version of that is what I think is, can you have the clear mind and unburdened heart to just be yourself when the pressure's on?
You talk a lot about living with love, courage, and wisdom. Those are big themes in your book. And I think when people hear that, they think it's fluffy and warm, but they don't know the practical side of it. Could you touch on what it means to live with love, courage, and wisdom?
Yeah, when I think of love, I think of passion, and passion is literally means to suffer. When you love something so much that you're willing to sacrifice your life for it and suffer for it, then you've got power. And wisdom is I think of it in two ways. One way is to have unobstructed views of connections and beauty and opportunities, and the other way I think about wisdom is to know who God is and therefore who you are, what he's doing in the world, and how you can join in. And so knowledge is really understanding like how to do anything that's tangible and temporary. If you can learn how to become a cook or a baseball player or an accountant. These are great things. You can learn knowledge. You can learn how to do these things. But wisdom is understanding anything that's eternal, everything that's going to last forever, and understanding that. And courage is the greatest asset that anyone can have. And what's amazing about that, because I think courage is what separates the best in anything from everyone else. And anyone can have courage. It's just the willingness to face your fears and to fail and to look foolish and work on mastering your ego and especially to feel any feeling. If you're willing to feel any feeling, then you can do some special things.
One of the coolest things and concepts that I came across in your book was about how gratitude can help you lean into creativity, and that creativity helps you solve problems. And for me, that's unique because my background's as an attorney, and I train thousands of attorneys on how to build mental strength, mental toughness, manage stress, mitigate burnout. And we're going to talk about some of your strategies for that as well. But when I came across that insight about how being connected to beauty and being connected through gratitude to beauty can help you solve problems because you're in a more creative state, my lens, my aperture around that concept widened immensely. And I was so receptive to it that it's like, I've made a lot of these changes in my life, but now I understand how I've been able to think through things with more clarity because of it. How'd you come across thinking about the problem of problem solving through creativity and gratitude in that way?
I'm not sure how I came across it. I mean, 5 years of full-time writing and research. But I do think of those things exactly as you said. I do think of the ability to adapt to any situation is one of the 5 key skills of inner excellence. It's the key skill for any athlete, any performer, anyone, any human. It's such a key skill. Can you adapt to the situation, to the room, to the moment? The ability to adapt is really the ability to be creative and to problem solve. And those skills are largely limited when we think about ourselves. The human nature is to be self-referential. I've only seen the world through my eyes. And so when I look at the world, I see the world through the lens of my experiences and the beliefs that have come from those experiences. And those beliefs have limitations. And so you have limitations that I don't, I have limitations that you don't, and you can see things that I can't see, and vice versa, because you haven't had the wounds and mistakes that I have, and vice versa. And so when you can get outside of yourself and there's no concern for self, there's no self-protection, then you can do amazing things. Then you can be really extremely creative. And then of course, when you're that creative, then you can problem solve and adapt. But it's can I get outside of myself and that self-concern And the essence, the answer really is to connect with the beauty that comes from love, the joy that comes from love, because it's our greatest need. And if you can go out into the world and feel that love, then you're not going to need it from others. You're not going to need it from your performance. You're not going to be needy. And most people, most of the time, including me for most of my life, have been needy. And I need, in the past, I've needed people to think well of me. I've needed things to work out in a certain way. I've had these needs. And in the book, I wrote about this sign on the wall of a monastery that says, "Dear guests, if there's anything you need, please let us know. We'll show you how to get along without it." And that's how I want to live is I want to live with no needs. I want to be need-free so I can have this freedom to pursue great things and to make a difference in the world.
I think one of the more enlightening parts of the book for me, and that I've been teaching about more recently, is the role of fear. Sometimes I'll read more than one book at once, which is a ADD thing or a behavioral thing, however you want to kind of conceptualize it. But your book overlapped with two others that I'm just running through and loving. The 50th Law by Robert Greene and 50 Cent, where the whole book's about fear and the role of fear. And then in your book, the way you talk about fear and how it relates to the ego and what it's really rooted in. Could you talk about and share the role of fear when it comes to the ego, managing burnout, stress management? What is it about fear that plays such a significant role in our life?
Okay, so let's look at two things, belief and fear. So there's three pillars to inner excellence. Everything that I talk about with clients and in the book is around these three pillars of belief, freedom, and focus. I think these are the three pillars to peak performance. And when I say belief, I mean a subconscious comfort level with what you feel is possible in your life. And beliefs are the key aspect of inner excellence, of extraordinary achievement. And so inner excellence is to constantly expand what you believe is possible in your life. And beliefs are feelings. When you come to the edge of your beliefs, so let's look at a golfer, for example. I've worked with a lot of pro golfers, and say you're an amateur golfer and you normally shoot in the 90s and you're halfway through the round, you come to the turn, you're after 9 holes and you look at the score and you're on pace to shoot a 75 or something crazy. What are you going to feel? Like that golfer is going to be like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. There's going to be discomfort. And it's going to be discomfort because that golfer is not comfortable with shooting in the 70s. And so what happens to most people is the back nine, they're going to get double, triple, quadruple bogeys, whatever, and then they're going to end up in the 90s or somewhere close because they're way out of their comfort zone. And so when they added up their score, likely they got a really uncomfortable feeling that was coming up against their belief. The belief is, I shoot in the 90s. Now I've got this feeling, oh my gosh, this could be, the best score ever for sure. And then they have this uncomfortable feeling. And so when we come to the edge of our beliefs, there's a way it feels. When most people come to that edge of their feelings, they back off. I remember talking to Hall of Fame linebacker Brian Urlacher, Chicago Bears, and I said, this was actually at a PGA Tour Pro-Am, and I said, tell me what is the difference between your Hall of Fame career and others, or the best that you've ever played against and others? And he said, well, the thing that was different that I noticed the most was that when I made a mistake, it didn't slow me down. When other NFL players make a mistake, they get tentative. And that's the big difference. And so what happens to most people is they come to the edge of their feelings and their fears and they shrink back. No, way too uncomfortable. I could really look foolish. I could really make a big mistake. I could really fail here. And that's too scary. And they're not going to do it. So this is how most people have lived their lives. And I've done that way too often. And so what I want to do, and I want to help you and others do, is when you come to the edge of those feelings and those fears, when you're the most uncomfortable, maybe it's the biggest performance of your life, or it's the big sale or whatever it is, that you're willing to have those feelings. And so part of inner excellence, we want to expand what you believe is possible. We want to be willing to let go of your past, and we want to be willing to let go of who you've been to become someone you've never been before. That's very scary. And so we ask ourselves some questions. Are you willing to face your fears? Are you willing to fail? Are you willing to look foolish? Are you willing to face, this is a crucial one, are you willing to face any feeling and sit with and keep that feeling if it never goes away all day? Because, and this is a big part of panic attacks. Panic attacks, it starts off with this feeling, oh my gosh, like, and it could come from anywhere, out of the blue. That's why it's panic, because like, oh, right around the corner, all of a sudden you get into some context or someone says something and then this feeling comes up that's so scary and you're like, oh no, it's coming, and then it comes. And so with inner excellence, we're going to go look for those scary feelings and we're going to embrace them as our teacher, even though they're so uncomfortable. That's where we expand what we believe is possible.
Hi everyone, welcome to Inside the Inspired. My name is Jonathan Cohen and I have a quick favor to ask you. If you're getting any value out of this content, please take a second to subscribe to the channel. You help us reach more people and you can also stay up to date with all the latest content coming your way. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you in the episode.
I love the way that you assess and analyze and provide the depth behind the concepts that you share in your book. They're very principled and easy to follow because they blend into one another so smoothly. But at the same time, there's like this counterintuitive approach, right? Like in order to be comfortable, we have to seek discomfort. And you talk about passion as suffering and compassion as to suffer with. So when it comes to that counterintuitive aspect of pursuing discomfort in order to be comfortable, I understand this deeply. I run marathons, ultra marathons. I put myself under immense physical stress doing thousands of reps for, different philanthropic causes. Like I understand the idea of being physically uncomfortable in order, and I think the audience understands it too. It's a matter of how we have to deliberately build these things into our life in order to have that muscle, that resilience that helps us maintain that level of composure under pressure. And so one idea that I'm sure you already understand it based on all the work that you've done or are familiar with it more accurately. Phil Jackson talks about mental toughness as this ability and mental strength as this ability to bring yourself back to center, right? And to your point earlier, like, when you were talking about the NFL linebacker Hall of Fame player, he was saying how, pretty much I recover quickly. Like something happens, I get back to center. It's speed to recovery. So in terms of maintaining composure under pressure and that counterintuitive approach to pursuing discomfort, how does that help us build resilience? Why are those ideas so important for people to understand?
The greatest fear that most people have is rejection. And in other words, the greatest human need is for love and acceptance. And so most people are spending their entire lives, and with largely often without knowing it, that I just want to have more possessions, achievements, looks, money, status, so I can be somebody important, so I can get that love that I so desperately need. But the problem is when I fail, I'm going to get the opposite of that. I'm going to get rejected. And that's the greatest fear. And when you understand, okay, what is it that I want most? And realize that what most people want most is far more than something tangible. They have the story for their lives like I did. Like if I achieve these certain things as a pro athlete, then I'm going to get the life that I want, that amazing life. And when it diverted from that path that I thought was the one that I was supposed to live, then I started to panic and I was so depressed, and I didn't know that there was the best possible life has one foot in joy and one foot in suffering. And it's this constant learning and putting yourself in situations where you're failing and learning, and most importantly, mastering the ego. And I define the ego as that part of your mind that's always threatened, always comparing, never satisfied. And the ego leverages our heart's deep need for love and said, look, if you screw this up, if you fail, if you miss this putt, or if you give a poor presentation, you're going to get what you're most afraid of. You're going to get that rejection. People are going to reject you and they're going to judge you. And that would be the worst of all scenarios, because our number one The thing we're created for is for relationship. Our number one need, power, desire is unconditional love. And so when we fail, there's that ego saying, look, you're going to lose that thing. And so most people spend their entire lives trying to get more of those achievements and possessions and looks and money status so they can get that love and connection. But it's a chase your tail, endless treadmill that doesn't work.
Reframing is a big part of my skill set in terms of like something bad happens. What's another way that I could look at it, right? Like the counter argument to the initial reaction to things. I want to pick your brain on this idea of channeling raw emotions and reframing them into energy generating emotions. Stress as activation energy, hyperfocus, this ability when something stressful is going on, it actually is serving you as a form of resistance to help you grow. That discomfort, right? That pressure creates diamonds kind of mentality. Or overwhelm becoming an active source to help you reorient and realize you need a nervous system reset. Or anger as raw power, as again deferring to Phil Jackson and how he defines it, or an MJ kind of approach where a chip on a shoulder becomes an opportunity to show I'm going to drop 50 on you in the finals. How does reframing play a role in the Inner Excellence playbook?
It's so important to understand the number one thing that you need to protect. And if you want to live the best possible life, if you want to be great at anything, the number one thing you need to protect is your energy. And that's your energy comes from your heart, your spirit, your will. Beliefs are feelings, feelings are energy. And so how you feel is who you're becoming. If you're constantly afraid, then likely your thoughts are negative and you're moving towards that. If you're constantly inspired, obviously, then you're constantly moving towards that. It's obvious. The hardest thing is to be regularly inspired in a world with so much out of our control. And so that's why we need to arrange our environment so that we can get these images and words and feelings in our lives that are in line with what's possible for us and our goals and dreams.
When we think about that idea, I mean, you were saying it before, 1 foot in joy and 1 foot in suffering. I'm always going through these thought loops of, I'm training for a sub 3 hour marathon right now. And I keep saying to myself after this training block, like, can't wait to take it easy. Can't wait to take it easy. I'm not going to run as much. The mileage is going to go down. And then I'm like, but I also don't feel that same sense of purpose or that same sense, not that I need a marathon for a purpose, obviously, but the idea that, I'm not going to push myself 1,000% to the degree that I'm pushing myself. And, the reason your book resonates so much is because I missed my last attempt by 40 seconds. And a few months earlier, I'd done a 58-mile ultra marathon, and a sub 3 was never on my radar my entire life. I was like, that's reserved for super athletes. And I had to reorient that perspective. And so, in January, even if you were to tell me that I'd be pursuing it, I'd be like, no, not me. And then in May, I miss it by these 40 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God, like, is this tension of I've done better than I ever thought by light years, but then at the same time, like, I didn't hit my goal. So when people eliminate limiting beliefs in their life, the aperture opens up and you start to see yourself differently. You feel like you unlock different versions of yourself. When it comes to that 1 foot in joy, 1 foot in suffering, the ego always being threatened, they're like competing notions. Can you maybe offer some insight or tools to help us manage those emotions to eventually achieve the outcomes that we're after?
Human nature is to pursue comfort. There's never a time when, if I get the option, sit in a hot tub, get poked in the eye, I'll take poked in the eye. That never happens. I'll always take the hot tub because I have this nature that always wants comfort. And yet I know that if you want to live an extraordinary life, you have to have 1 foot in suffering. I mean, we can just look at it with getting stronger physically. There's no other way to get stronger physically than without breaking the muscles down. We have to break the muscles down to get them stronger. It's the same thing with wisdom. If you want to have some wisdom, we have to go through things. You can't just read it in a book. You have to go through trouble. If you want to expand what you believe is possible, you have to come to the edge of your feelings. you have to be really uncomfortable. You're never going to expand what you believe is possible unless you regularly get to that point where you're coming to the edge of your feelings. And you're never going to build an extraordinary business if you're not willing to fail. You're not going to be you're not going to be as good as you can be as an athlete or anything unless you're willing to take the risks necessary to constantly readjust. And those risks are going to bring with it this so-called failure. And so really defining who you are and how you want to feel, how you want to live, who you're meant to become is so crucial. And so defining your own success is so important. And that's why learning and growing is the number one goal of Inner Excellence, because we don't know what's best for us results-wise. Is it great to achieve your dream? Well, say your dream was to be CEO, and then you spend 10 years and you get there, and now you're CEO, and now you're making millions of dollars. But you're getting a divorce and your kids aren't talking to you and you're filled with anxiety. Well, was that a success? We may be really good at something, and that may be leading us in the wrong direction. Just because we're good at it, we keep doing it because it's easy and comfortable. And so that's why it's so important to understand is that the best possible life is a life where you're constantly exploring and developing self-awareness and understanding like wisdom to understand, if I can get out of my own way and connect with the power of the universe, the power of God, then I can do something extraordinary when I'm not thinking about self. And you can think about, well, if your heart, training your heart is the number one thing. And you can think about, well, where is your heart right now? If you want to do a little checkup, you can say, well, what happens when I'm squeezed, when I'm under pressure? What happens? What comes out? Is it inner peace and inner strength? Or is it F-bombs? I mean, don't ask me that question, because I've had, being human, we have these things, these times when we wish we were better. The question is not, where are you at right now compared to everyone else? The question is, what are you going to do right now about it? It's never, okay, I just had a bad day, bad week, bad month, bad 50 years. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is, what will you do right now? Are you willing to let that go? Or are you going to carry it with you the rest of your life? Are you going to carry it with you today, the rest of your day? Or can you be fully present right now and be grateful in this moment right now?
You got this other profound insight where you talk about being led around by our eyes and attachment. I never really looked at it in that way. And the other thing I want to talk to you about is, and you've referenced it a few times, is self-centeredness that comes along with human nature and how it plays into the ego and how the ego pretty much governs everything. But when we talk about being led around by our eyes and attachment to circumstances, can you help people understand what you mean when you share that?
Yeah, I mean, you see a beautiful sunset, or you're standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, or you see the most beautiful piece of art, or you hear the most amazing concert in your life. What are you feeling? You're gonna feel something very powerful, right? When you see, if something comes across your eyes that is extremely beautiful, or extremely scary, or anything extreme, you're going to feel it, because that's such a powerful sense that we have. And that's why arranging your environment is so crucial. And that's why with Inner Excellence, we have on our phone constantly reminders all day long. And I need it more than anybody. I have constant reminders that God is with you, Jim. And like, for example, I had a reminder on my phone that, which, by the way, I've been doing this for years, if not decades. And that's been the most powerful one for me, that last one. But I had a reminder on my phone, I am a New York Times best-selling author for years. And I published Inner Excellence. The first one was 2009, and then we did a revised edition 2020, and then 2025 was when A.J. Brown read it, and then so did many others. I got rid of that. I mean, I turned off that reminder after, I don't know, I had it for a year or two or several years, but it's been 16 years. And so I turned it off, and then finally it happened. And so I have these, if you have an iPhone, just go to alarms and you turn off the sound and turn off the snooze, and then you just type it in, whatever you want to type in, your purpose and some affirmation or some goal. So I have these reminders all day long on my phone. I have it, if you could see my office here in Spain, I have it on my windows written down. there's prayers, there's principles. I know that even though, I may have been doing this for a fairly long time, I know that just a couple thoughts, a couple images in my mind, and I can go to the negative. In the past, that's what's happened. And so I constantly, for me, I know that I need physiologically to do things to make sure my body feels a certain way, feels positive, constantly getting my mind filled with things that are empowering and moving me towards love, wisdom, and courage. Otherwise, I'm just like anyone else. I'll get caught up in something that's really moving me towards a negative spot.
Having that North Star, that clarity, is so essential. Just going back to that sub-3 attempt and the second one, it's been so hard this time around. First time I was super motivated because I felt like I had something to prove. And now, like, I'm in this training block, and the first month of it was just so debilitating. Like, I'm still showing up, taking it session by session. And as you talk about, like, immerse yourself in the process and just take it up, like, stride by stride, rep by rep, mile by mile. That's what you have to do. You gotta lean into that suffering so you could make that shift and change. And now I've kind of found a rhythm. You want to seek that rhythm of life in order to lean in and be present, be grateful, be connected to beauty. And it's been super fulfilling just to know that even though I was in that darker place in the beginning, the more I've embraced the process in any part of my life with anything that I challenge myself with, like, I know that I have to become process driven. The process is the reward, right? The journey is the reward kind of mentality. But practicing it is obviously very different when you're trying to get something tangible. It's not the medal at the end. It's the accolades of being able to say, like, I woke up at 4:00 in the morning, ran those miles. I ran in the cold. I ran in the heat, like, whatever it takes just to commit and see it through. And when I read your work and I reflect on how it applies to me, to the people that I work with, burnout is a topic that comes up quite a lot. If we could swim upstream on burnout and define it, from your perspective, what do you think are the leading causes of burnout, and maybe what's one thing people can do to start curing it now?
For me, it's pretty clear for most of us. It's the goals are way too small. And what I mean by that is burnout happens because people like myself get obsessed about reaching some goal, some tangible goal, become a Major League Baseball player, superstar, become CEO, become an entrepreneur, get a nicer house or whatever it is. And then so we just get obsessed about making more money or getting more achievements and stuff. And then we get burned out. And it's because the goals are too low. If your goal is to be world number one in golf, that's just too low. You could become world number one. You could win an Olympic gold medal and be filled with anxiety. Like Michael Phelps, 23 Olympic gold medals, suicidal. That should be clear. Winning a gold medal is too low a goal if you want to live an extraordinary life, because you might get your goal. And like Tom Brady said, is that it? Like Bubba Watson said after winning his second Masters, is that it? And so we need higher goals than these tangible things that we think are going to be what's going to make our lives amazing. And so, like, most people know that the studies that say, once you reach a certain amount of money, $70,000 or whatever it is now, that money after that does not make you happier. And so people know these things, but it doesn't stop us from getting into this treadmill of just achieve more. And so because the inner excellence is complex, there's so much that goes into living an extraordinary life. But I know that if I make more money, I'm going to be able to get that car, or I'm going to be able to get a nicer house, or trips to Europe, or whatever it is, trips to America. And it's just way too short-term of thinking. We need to think deeply about our life. We need to simplify our life and slow it down and think more about, how do I want to live? How do I want to feel? Who do I want to become? And pursue that, because you can pursue that every day. And when you do that, then you'll be better at everything you do and less attached to the results.
So from a practical perspective, deletion is a place to start, you think?
We need to get rid of what's not you. And so, okay, let's think about simplifying your life. There's no way to simplify your life without prioritizing. You just can't do it. You're like, oh, I can't get rid of that. I can't stop doing that. We need to say, look, what's most important in your life? All the way down to, well, what's your life purpose? And so my life purpose is to share God's love, wisdom, and courage with everybody, especially athletes and leaders around the world. And so I want to make every single decision out of that. And well, Inner Excellence has 9 disciplines. The disciplines are there to help you understand and like, how do I every day live it out? Like, for example, deprive the appetites is an Inner Excellence discipline. We need to deprive the appetites to enhance the spiritual life, the spirit-led life, the heart-led life. And if you're always giving in to your appetites, your desires, then like I read about in Inner Excellence, I mean, as great as chocolate is, I mean, who doesn't love chocolate? You keep eating chocolate all day long, you're going to get sick. You know, you keep giving in to your desires, your credit cards are going to get maxed out, and you're going to have way too many shoes, and you're going to end up broke and sick and fat. We need to train our heart to love most, what's most empowering. We need to get rid of what's not us. We need to learn to deprive the appetites. Like, for example, fasting, going without food regularly is a powerful thing for your physiological health and for your mind. Going into the cold, very powerful for both. Same thing. To say, I'm not led around by my feelings. I don't live my life by my feelings. I mean, it's something that helps me get out of bed. That phrase, I don't live my life by my feelings.
I absolutely love that because I have something very similar. Like, you can't let your feelings dictate and guide every single decision. Jim, it has honestly been a pleasure to speak with you, to read your book, I just need a signed copy of it now. That's really what I'm after. But I genuinely appreciate the time. I want to be respectful of your time. I could talk to you for, I feel like 5 more hours. But there's a question that I pose to all the guests that come on the podcast that I'd love to pose to you. If the future version of yourself from 10 years from now were to fly in and offer you some advice in order to get there, what do you think he would say to you?
My life has changed a lot since January 12th. It's gotten really busy. I've been in a new city every 4 or 5 days, except for when I'm here in Spain. I've been on social media way more. Just, now I have this big team, and we have all these things that we're doing. And I think that future Jim would say, you need to make sure that your purpose is number one in your life every day, and that you're developing that, and that's your highest goal. And don't settle for these lower level loves, these lower level goals as your number one. It's great to have any more success or sell more books, and that's great because you want to make a difference in the world, and I definitely do. But I know who I'm becoming is the most important thing. And I think that future Jim would say, make sure that you stay connected to the source of every good thing. And that's the number one thing that you can do. And so thank you, Jonathan, for reminding me, because that's what I'm going to do.
My man. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Jim Murphy, please let the audience know where they can keep up with your journey.
Thank you, Jonathan. Yeah, so if you go to my website, you can sign up for the newsletter, the VIP newsletter, where I share things that I share with my pro athletes, and then also announcements like the retreat coming up in Mexico. We build a house with Youth with a Mission coming up in November. We'll be switching to Substack soon. So go to my website. You can also follow me on social media, Instagram, Inner Excellence Jim Murphy, and the other social media outlets.
I appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much. If you got any value out of this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Once again, my name is Jonathan Cohen, and this is Inside the Inspired.